everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far to talk about the movies, TV shows, video games, anime that they care about. And today I am joined by one of my favorite human beings, a person that I have a spiritual connection with, especially in terms of anime. Nobody loves anime as much as this person. Truly, I don't know a single person. I am staring at them right now and they have an anime pillow in the background. Before this call even started, officially, she showed me 2 anime posters. I'm talking about Amanda Parker, everyone. Hi, Amanda.
Thank you. Hi, Tong. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? You look absolutely super happy to be here.
I'm very happy to be here. And it's so funny because if like 15-year-old me listened to you introduced me as that, she would be devastated and be like, I tried to hide that I was into anime for so long because it was this is so uncool. Like everyone's watching like the OC, One Tree Hill. But I was just drawn to anime. And I was like, that's my favorite stuff to watch. So it feels like really good as an adult to like just be able to love what you want to love, right? And then meet people who also want to obsessively talk about all of the same shows and characters as you. And like, think about it in like, I always feel like the point of art is to analyze it.
Yeah.
Like that. I never want to be a passive audience member.
Sure.
I always want to be active after the fact. So
you want to have a discussion afterwards. You want to talk about a thing. That's what art does. It generates discussion with people.
Exactly. So meeting you and quickly realizing that we had all of the exact same tastes, really made it easy.
it's very
to feel like, oh no, this is the right decision all along because there's someone who feels the exact same way about me. Or about the things I like as me. It's phenomenal.
Isn't that funny? Like I think about that a lot. I think about a lot about being ashamed of things that you like. And back, especially in high school and like a very judgmental stage in your life where you have to play this, well, you're just trying to figure out your emotions, first of all, but also like it's one of those things where if you say you like the wrong thing and someone who's more quote unquote popular than you teases you about it, it could be emotionally devastating.
Yeah, and then you just have to get, and also too, let's be honest, anime is freaking weird. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes down, and it's just all it takes is one person to see one scene out of context, or sometimes in context, and it's still weird. And you're like, yes. But that's just like a snippet of what is actually a beautiful tapestry of like complexities and emotions and like push and pull in the narrative. You're just like, wow. But it's. I think I will say it's one of the easiest like genre. Like when I don't, and then you get into the whole idea. Yeah. Is it a genre?
Is it a genre? What is it? I don't know.
Because it's one of those things where all like people will straight up be like, oh, I just don't like anime. And I'm like, but what does that mean? Like
that's like saying you don't like TV shows because anime has just like regular TV shows. There's so many there's bad anime, 100%. Yeah. But there's good ones too, just like there's bad TV shows and good TV shows.
Yeah. So then I feel like it comes down to like an aesthetic of just people don't like the way it looks. Because from a storytelling point of view, I'm like, I promise you there's a story there out there for you. Yeah. Like there's so many different types of stories being told. And a lot of them like will have common tropes, but you'll probably be able to find something that feels as like quote unquote Western as you need, like a Baccano or a Banana Fish that's like, or even what The Great Pretender is pulling now from this international. Like they're just people who I think are being stubborn. Is what I think.
Give it a shot. For the people though, like, we talked already a lot about anime, but we don't know who I do. And the people who might have listened to ranked top 5 lists of stuff that don't matter, they might have heard your voice before, but the people of Talking Tongue, a lot of them are the same, but some people only listen to Talking Tongue, which is strange to me.
How does that feel? Is that must like
that's
feel like
cool.
People want to be your friend?
I hope so. I need friends right now. So, Amanda, for the people who don't know who you are, it's a
Yeah.
crime. So let's tell the people what Amanda's all about.
Oh, what is okay? So Amanda is all about living in Toronto for the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
She's happy in the city life. I'm definitely like, I realize the longer I'm here, the more I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever return to that small town vibe.
Oh,
I just love,
interesting.
I just love the feeling of stepping out my front door and being like, oh, I can't go anywhere. But hopefully,
I was gonna say, how does it feel to
hopefully,
live in a big city where you can't do any of the cool things that living in a big city gives you?
it's like I will say it's been difficult and it's really made you emphasize the importance of like having your own space. So I was
Yeah.
lucky enough to move into my own apartment
Yeah.
about 2 months ago, and that has completely transformed my like experience in this pandemic because it's
Really?
like,
Yeah.
oh, I have so much more, like I get to do what I want when I want all
Right.
of the time. Like you're not, I came from a situation where I was with five other roommates. And
Oh, too
so
much.
and we lived in a whole, like we had a whole house. So it wasn't even that necessarily we were like getting in each other's ways a lot, but it was just that sense of like, when you want to go do something, whether it's like cook a meal, have a shower, go downstairs and watch TV, you, you got to sort of be like, okay, what are the other five people in my house doing? You know, like you're always thinking about other people in like the actions you're taking. So,
Yeah.
my boss actually described it to me. She's like, when you move in on your own, you're gonna like feel like you shed 15 pounds just because it's like all of that like emotional sort of
Yeah.
stress of being in like a group dynamic constantly. And
Right.
so that's been like really good. And I have felt the shedding of those pounds. So right now I'm just working from home, as you know, a good portion of us are.
Yeah.
I work in children's television, which is awesome.
That's so
And we're
cool.
we're working on a live action series right now, called Miss Persona. It's just about wrapped up in post production, but it airs on Treehouse. So if anyone has like kids that are in the preschool age, it's like a phenomenal show. It's so fascinating to watching a show that you're like, oh, if I was 4 years old again, I would have like worshipped this show. Like it would have
Right.
been my big comfy couch. It would have been like Toy Castle, I think was another one that I love too.
Right.
And it's like, so it's really cool to be a part of that experience and know that you have a small role to play in like a kid's favorite
Right.
show
You're
that they're
you're
going to
you're
remember and talk about.
a piece
Yeah.
of you're spreading positivity to the world
Yes.
by being part of this already positive thing.
Yeah. And you really, I feel like for so many people too, is like this past year has been it's really made clear for me what are the things I value and what are the things I thought I needed to value to look like I was doing well to other people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I think that kind of goes back to our first thing. It's just like needing, I mean, we didn't say exactly like this, but kind of needing to like something for some sort of social status instead of just
Yeah.
doing it because it made you feel good yourself, like being your
Yeah,
own person.
totally.
So like, yeah, I love the idea that like you now living alone, shedding that weight. And I'm sure you had fun
Hmm.
times with those people. I know what roommates'
Hmm.
lives are like, but now you have this independence and you feel like you can just be your own person, which I do. I
Yes.
love that. Yeah, that's great. So
Yeah.
moving on from that, like
Oh,
what are the things that, it's not just your show, but that you work on, but what are the things that keep you happy during the pandemic? We've been living
oh.
in this for like a year now.
I will say that every time I think that we're coming up to the year anniversary of this, a part of me goes, no,
Yeah,
no,
no way.
no, not a year. I'm actually going to be in like 2 weeks. I'll have my like official pandemic birthday because I just missed it. I was March 5th. So
Oh,
so
yeah.
last year, I literally went out like 3 nights that week for my birthday. I was out on Tuesday night, Thursday. Like there was
Wow.
a part of me that I think somehow knew you're not going to be doing this for a year or two. So you need to get out and live your life, girl. So lately I've been really into playing Dead by Daylight, which
Yep.
is a great game with Christine and Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda Albeck also talk. I really please join us playing if you are
I
in.
have that game, I think. I'm pretty
You
sure I have
okay?
that game.
I think it'd be really fun for you to join a session with us because we have a great time with it.
Spooky
I
time.
didn't. It's a spooky time, but it was interesting. We were talking about how like being in a video game like that for that like for those few hours, it doesn't feel like you're in like an entertainment source that has been changed by the pandemic in any ways.
Right.
You know, because it's like whether or not we were in a lockdown. Sorry, I'm just gonna like restart this sentence because I'm burping.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, I don't edit this, so their burps stay in.
Oh, okay, great.
So
That's good to know. Uh,
the people have to know.
That's what I should have asked at the beginning of this. Is tongue is gonna be edits, right?
Oh no, I edit ranked, but talking tongue is one of those free flowing conversations. It has to be natural. Even we start going, bleh, bleh. Don't care. Leave it in. Leave it in.
So what we were talking about, Amanda actually brought up was like when we're playing video games, it's like we would have to be playing like this online anyways. So it's not like, you know, there's so many forms of like, oh, if we want to watch a movie now, or like if like have a Zoom hangout, like you're constantly aware like this isn't normal, but this is how it has to be.
Right.
Where it's really nice having a pastime that is like feels like the before time.
Right. Yeah. Video games were already online. I mean, there was couch co-op, but we were already trending towards online video games with your friends. That's been established for years. Makes sense. Yeah.
I've also this is the dream come true. So I have recently actually inherited a PS4.
Wow.
Yes. So my boyfriend got the PS5. And so he was like,
so
I'm not using my
the PS4.
So we live in the same building. So it's not like it's like 4 floors away from him. You know, like if he ever needed it, it's like immediately back in his possession, you know?
Right.
But I was like, I mean, why would we just let it sit there collecting dust? You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I made my account now. And so I have a feeling I'm gonna get like super into video gaming. Like in a way I say like 5 or 6 months ago with like Animal Crossing and Pokemon. Like the Switch was in my hands for like, you know, 5 to 6 hours a day.
For sure.
And now I feel like the PS4 is going to take over in a big way.
Fantastic.
And I'm so excited for it.
I'm excited for you. I mean, you first of all, this is a conversation for afterwards, but as you know, we don't edit. So you'll just have to add me on PlayStation. But don't tell me your network name because again, don't edit. So yeah, I would love to play video games with you. I also spent a lot of time on my PS4 as well. I just think, and I mentioned this in previous episodes, like gaming is such especially during a pandemic. Before that, it was like obviously still podcasting, but more improv stuff, more live performance stuff. And now that that's like been taken out of my life mostly because of the pandemic, and I'm not performing as much. It's like, what do I do with my spare time? What do I love? I love watching movies. I love watching TV shows. I love reading comic books. And I love video games. Why don't I allow myself to play video games anymore? Because before it was like I felt guilty. I'm like, I need to do something productive, quote unquote. And now it's like, fuck that. Like video games is the perfect escapism. And I have the time of my life to be like living these stories. I play a lot of narrative single player games. I love diving deep into that stuff. Or it doesn't even have to be narrative. Like sometimes, like right now I'm playing Super Mario 3D World, for example, and I'm playing like this anime video game, which is like two polar opposites, but I love that's a time for tongue, you know, like I can just zone in and do this and get lost for hours on end and forget that the world around me is not so pleasant, you know?
But then that's what's I feel that too, though. There's almost like this pressure too of like, what are you watching? What are you reading? And it really kind of becomes like a part of your identity. And like people will judge you, especially during these times, kind of on like what you're watching or what you're reading or how much you're watching and reading, you know, in terms of, and like looking to be like, okay, what are your tastes? And like, I remember like, you want to be a part of conversation. So you watch stuff and you read stuff to be a part of conversation. So I feel like art also always has this like kind of like social tie back where it's like, oh, I'm watching this. so I can talk to my friends about it. I'm reading this so I can be a part of like the zeitgeist and know
Sure,
what
yeah.
everyone is tweeting about. Where video games are sometimes that thing where you're like, oh, there's no goal beyond what's in the game.
Yeah.
Like if someone asks me about how I'm doing in Dead by Daylight, great. But if no one does, then that's
I'm
how
good. Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is odd because you would think in a year in which we've had more like time to ourselves than ever before, it would be easy to be like, this one's just for me. But it's like a onion layer you're still trying to peel back.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm just thinking about Shrek.
I insist he comes up at least once in a conversation about self-discovery.
I agree completely with everything you just said, Amanda. But hey, look, we have other things we got to talk about today, especially the news of the week, which honestly kind of boring. But we're going to make it exciting. We're going to make it exciting. It's pop culture headlines. So it's already more exciting than real news because who cares about that? And I have my question for you. Is that I'm just scrolling through here. Do you know there's a lot of video game movies and things that are coming out like that. And the first one is not per se a video game. It's actually a tabletop game. Michelle Rodriguez and Justice Smith join Chris Pine in a Dungeons and Dragons movie. What do you think about a Dungeons and Dragons movie? How do you make that work?
I'd be curious to see, and I feel like when you say a Dungeons and Dragons movie, from what I understand about Dungeons and Dragons, there's thousands of stories because you're playing through like a quest, right?
You're either playing a pre-made quest or somebody just makes it, or
someone's making up. So it's just a fantasy movie. Like
exactly. I'm like, well, that's what I mean. Like, what? How do you make it? And then
it's like, I mean, my only thinking, it's like, okay, if you want to do Dungeons and Dragons, are they going to go like the Jumanji route of just, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons and we're sucked into the world of fantasy. Like they could maybe play it like that, because I'd be curious to know if it's like how heavily involved the brand of Dungeons and Dragons is involved. And it's like, do they want to have like their gameplay be a part of the structure of the movie?
Yeah, because I think the most important aspect of Dungeons and Dragons is dice rolls, right? Like randomization. You want to make a choice, you roll for it. Do you show that in the movie?
Yeah, because again, maybe there would be some like, there's famous Dungeons and Dragons like characters and stories, and I'm sure there are, like, this is like the best one, but then that's a very niche audience, in which case the majority of your audience is probably going to be like, oh, it's just a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, we always need more fantasy. It's a really underrepresented genre.
Super. Yeah. There's not enough fantasy movies out there. Yeah.
So I would be interested to see what they do, but it's also like, I've fallen off the movie track a bit.
Have you?
I find myself like, this was like, Akira was the first movie I watched in a long time, because I find I just don't have enough time with everyone. Right. And I feel like the kind of character development and storytelling I'm interested in right now is really only accomplished through TV shows. Like, that's not to say amazing character development and stories aren't in film. I just find it's over so soon that I don't have an interest in watching it.
I feel that, like, Talking Tongue is kind of the reason that I can watch movies again. Not that you're not, it's the only, but I created Talking Tongue in such a way that now it forces me to watch movies every single week, which is great because I love movies too. But I agree with you. Like with TV shows, you get so much more time to fall in love with characters. You get to know like more. The perfect example right now is WandaVision. And no spoilers for anyone out there, although I think we've spoiled it already. I think we did a whole episode on WandaVision not too long ago. But mostly that in a Marvel movie, you only get to spend like a snippet of time with these characters. Now we have something called like WandaVision, where you get to spend much more time with these two characters. And already in the 6 episodes that have aired as of this recording, I'm learning so much more, and it's so much more interesting on a character level with these characters than in the even 2.5 hours that you would spend in a Marvel movie, because it's not about these two characters. It's about a greater story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And well, that's the thing with the Marvel movies is they are a vehicle for great action sequences and like great epic battles and fights, and they have fantastic character work in them.
Yes.
But like, if you really want to get a sense of like the Avengers dynamic, you have to watch like 10 hours of movies. Like,
More.
Even
More
I guess
than
no,
that.
even yeah, like I guess you have to watch the whole cinematic universe to really appreciate it.
I mean, I do it.
Yeah.
But that's a crazy thing to ask somebody else to do.
Yeah.
I do
And also too, you're watching through some like subpar stuff. Like, it's like you gotta watch Iron Man 2 to get introduced to Black Widow. And you're like,
That's true.
but this is a 2-hour movie that's not that great. Where it's like the worst you're dealing with is maybe like a shoddy 40 minutes of television, a bad hour. But it's time that like is ideally sandwiched between two really good hours. So like, you know what? It was okay. That was a slice of spam of an episode, but like it's fine. I could get through it. Where movies like I agree with you completely. It's like you like to get to know people, and maybe that's just like as a result of these times too. Like I'm trying to figure out. It's like, oh, I don't want anything surface. Yeah, I want the depth.
Yeah, give me that character development. I crave it.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else would we got here? We have Disney to close Ice Age production company. So the company that made Ice Age and Rio.
Oh, is this Blue Sky?
Yeah, it's Blue Sky. So it's gone.
I saw this. Yeah, I saw.
The last film, Spies in Disguise. I did not watch that one.
I did not either.
But I was a big fan of Ice Age back in the day.
Yeah, I think it was really cool. I remember it being like one of those. It feels like that like type of animation.
Yep.
Is so like indicative of that time period.
Right.
Like it just like when I see Ice Age, I'm like, I remember the year. Like it's so. Yeah. It's such a. It's like a iconic look, but at the same time dated now, in the sense that it's like if you were to go back and watch it, like everything I just feel was so like it was 3-dimensional, but it was like you could count the number of layers on a character, if you will.
I mean, the first Ice Age movie was in 2002.
That's wild.
And then I have it in front of me here. Ice Age 2002, Ice Age The Meltdown 2006. Yep. I guess they had a short film called No Time for Nuts, which is 2006. Ice Age Dawn of the Dinosaurs was 2009.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Ice Age Continental Drift with 2012.
Not sure if I saw that one.
And I didn't know Age Collision something. It's the fifth one, Collision Course, which was the final one in 2016.
I can't believe an Ice Age movie came out in 2016. I don't believe you. You're telling the truth, but like I'm like I don't even remember that. Like the fact that series made it to 5 movies is impressive.
They remember like sometimes you would go to a movie and like it would start with that squirrel like just doing something for a bit, and you're like, the squirrel is fucking everywhere.
And he got so big, it was like, I'm like, I don't know that this is your mascot for this movie. Like he's so gnarly looking and like he's funny, but I'm like, he just doesn't have main character potential, and you're pushing him on me a little too much. Like Scrat, I think was his name. Like that's why I'm sometimes like my brain will remember like the name of the squirrel from Ice Age, but not how to do my taxes. Like it'll just
who can remember how to? This is too many steps to do your taxes.
Too many equations. So I also feel like Ice Age has been since replaced by the Croods.
Oh, is it? I thought that was made by the same company, but it has that look. I know what you mean.
Don't you mean
maybe it's because it's cavemen, Ice Age. Yeah. Not exactly related, but
it feels like that. Like, oh, we wanted like, And then I'm trying to think too, is like just in the two examples you gave, and I know the spy one also featured a main character being a pigeon for a long time. If Disney is pivoting away from like animal-led feature films.
Yeah, you're saying the people they don't have the appetite anymore. The audience doesn't have the
I
appetite for
don't know.
animal-led films. That's
Maybe
over.
not animal-led feature films,
Okay.
maybe not in that style. But I mean, who knows? But I'm just like hearing the types of movies they were creating.
Hmm.
It seems like a lot of truly B-list animated movies. Maybe
Yeah.
B-list is the qualifier over animal-led.
Probably
Right? I
that.
think that's probably the qualifier.
Probably that, yeah. Because what I just pictured like some executive at a whiteboard being like, no, they hate animals. Cross it off. No more. That's good. Okay, so what else do we have here? We have
Yeah.
ooh. Okay, let me
Oh.
see here. I don't know if this will hit with you, so maybe we just gloss this over. But did you ever? Well, you just got a PlayStation now, so maybe this is something you'll get into, which is The Last of Us. The Last of Us
Oh, The
video
Last of Us.
game.
Yes. And are we going to talk about the casting news of Pedro Pascal?
We are going to talk about the casting of Pedro
Okay.
Pascal. And I feel bad because the actress who plays Lyanna Mormont, her name is Bella Ramsey. She'll be playing the
Bella
other
Ramsey.
actor. There's two main actors in The Last of Us. You've never played this game before, eh?
I've never played it. I used to watch my roommates play it, and I just can't do zombie games. I can do serial killer games. I can't do like I hate the feeling of like turning a corner and multiple enemies attacking me.
Yeah.
And like just like the grotesque nature of like what they're called something spore beasts or something.
Clickers.
Clickers. Oh god. Like I seen some of the character designs and I'm like, congratulations, you have made a horrific creature. And I commend you for the fear that you will no doubtly like instill in me to the point where I can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
And so I like that's where I find you because the animation also is so good. It looks so real. Like, and it's so like just like watching some gameplay where I'm like, when those things come after you, like the camera shifts. So you see every like pore on their like mutilated face. And I'm like, that's just too up close and personal of a gameplay for me. And I remember talking about it, I think with like, I think Paul and Amanda, our mutual friends, were playing it. And they talked about how in the second one, the storyline was just very depressing. And like, I'm not sure if you also played it.
Oh yeah, it's very depressing.
Yeah, and just not. And I was like, it's hard to get into a game that you know is going to hurt you. Yeah. And you're also, and it's like, wait, so what am I surviving for? To have my heart broken.
Yes, it's a very depressing game about a post-apocalyptic world, blah blah blah, all this stuff. It is hard to, I mean, like I feel like a monster because a lot of people have told me like, yeah, it's a really depressing game, and I played it. It is a depressing game, but I have like this some sort of weird shield or something like that. I see that stuff and I'm like, oh man, this is really sad. And then I walk away from it and I'm like, okay, what do we like? Let's go watch My Hero Academia. Like it doesn't.
I think then you should commend yourself for great coping mechanisms and the
great?
ability.
Is that good?
I think it's a great I think it's the ability to immediately compartmentalize pain you don't want to deal with and put it on a shelf somewhere in your subconscious and go watch some, but maybe also too, you're like, that was very sad, but I also am cognizant enough to recognize that those were fictional characters in a fictional world in a video game.
Yeah.
And that hurt me, but I also like want to go on and have fun. Like Paul was telling me the other day about like the idea of like Greek tragedies. And how it's like they would give you this horrible sense of dread and sadness, but then afterwards you would feel so like light because you're like, well, I've just seen the worst thing that could happen to somebody, and aren't I lucky for that not being me?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's like what your brain's being like, oh man, you're not Ellie, man, am I right?
Yeah.
Like it's
well, Amanda, like I feel like you would like it you would
Yeah.
like it, but you would not. I don't know. It's a really hard one to recommend for, I don't want to get you down, and because it is very depressing, but I think you would appreciate at least the genius writing of it, but you probably wouldn't
I think
enjoy
so.
the playing of it. And then also, I guess there's the aspects where, there's some pretty grotesque violence that happens and stuff. So I think you'd on an artistic level, you'd be like, yeah, the
Yeah.
writing's really good. And I love
Yeah.
like all this, it just looks really good, but maybe you wouldn't enjoy the game itself.
And I'm confirm this for me. Are they doing a Last of Us TV show?
So that's what it is. That's what Pedro
Yeah,
Pascal.
TV show.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it is, I mean, they got a very,
It's
very
on.
hot button actor right now to play
Oh,
the main
mhm.
character. And I'm like, I think you got the right one. I,
I
I,
think so too.
I like Pedro Pascal a
I
lot.
love him.
A
He's
lot.
so cool.
So I wonder, and we don't have to spend too long on this, but like,
Mm.
do you think right now is are we getting towards the tipping point with Pedro Pascal where he gets too mainstream and then everybody hates him? Not you,
Mm.
but I feel like
Mm.
this is the classic Hollywood trajectory, and I'm going to name a few right now. Jennifer Lawrence was like, oh,
Yep.
where's this woman coming from? Oh, she's in all the movies now. And then all of a sudden, everybody who loved her turned on her. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
why?
And now we have Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh. Now we have Florence Pugh. And then it happened with Chris Pratt, where everybody loved
Yeah.
Chris Pratt. And now everybody turned on him. It's starting to happen with Tom Holland. And I'm like, I like Tom
Is
Holland.
it?
Yeah, I feel like
Really?
people are like, he's in everything. I don't like him anymore. I'm like, wait, you don't like him because he's talented and he gets a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like
That's wild.
it's a weird thing. And I heard it when like
Mhm.
Pedro Pascal came out, and I'll say like he's not in as many things as like he's in a lot of stuff, but he hasn't. I don't think
Mhm.
he's hit that point yet. But I saw one or few comments are starting to peek up, being like, he's in everything. I don't like him anymore. And I'm like, wow, that's such a weird, interesting thing that all
Yeah.
Hollywood people go through, I guess.
Also, I'm just thinking too of like the body of work that I've seen of him. I mean, Game of Thrones, he just lasts like what, 6 episodes? He's not
Very
even in
long.
it that long. Like
Yeah.
it's not like he's hanging on for all 8 seasons. Like
Yep.
the burst of energy he brings to that show is then immediately ripped away, and you realize, oh, this show won't be as good for every other episode after he's
Yep.
gone. Because he had charisma and all the other characters just had sadness.
Yeah.
And then Mandalorian, I haven't watched it.
You haven't watched The Mandalorian?
I haven't watched it. Okay, no, don't have to be so loud about this. I'm gonna watch it, but from my understanding, he's like helmeted for most of it, so it's not
Yep.
like you've been seeing his face. And then he was the bad guy in Wonder Woman,
Yep.
which, like, again, one of the bad guys, because there were two bad guys in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's had enough screen time in like pop culture shows
Yeah.
to warrant any hate. And people are like, he's in too much stuff. It's like, or maybe you just watch all the same stuff and like, and he's going to like popular franchises. Like
Yeah.
all of the things he's been a part of is just like mainstream
Sure.
superhero, Star Wars, Disney's like kind of stuff. So
He's
I
in
feel like,
Narcos as well, but I never watched that show.
oh, I
so
never
like,
watched Narcos either.
but he was in it. Apparently he's great. But anyways, it just goes
Okay.
back to like, I find it a
Yeah.
fascinating thing when people like, and I think it
Yeah.
happens with everything, is as soon as something gets something or someone gets too popular, some switch
Yeah.
flips on people being like, now I
I
gotta hate it.
know.
And I'm like, I don't like that attitude. Like, unless that
Yeah.
person did something shitty to you, or like
Yeah.
is a bad real person and is getting work, I don't think it's justified to just
Yeah.
hate on someone for getting work as an actor. That's a hard thing to do already. Like,
I know. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to you because it's like, assuming they're getting more work because they're doing well in their performances, you know? But that's what's so weird about the world of acting is it's like the more work you get in any other field is just like under the table.
yeah,
Like, you know, like you're just making your way through your ladder.
Sure.
And then with like films, it's like everyone is constantly aware of the progress of your career.
yeah. And if you
And-
make a bad thing, people see it because
Yeah.
you put it out there.
Yeah, like if like you fuck up at work, like a good couple million people are probably going to see it and then be mad at you for having no part in making them pay money to see it.
Yeah.
Like,
You were just trying to work. You were just trying to do the thing. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting.
I think though it's a good observation that there's this tipping point in like human nature that we're just like have had success, but just the right amount for us. Have just the right amount of success.
Yeah, it's a weird jealousy thing, I guess. I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up and see what you thought, but I'm glad we're kind of like, I'm glad we discussed that because I need to get that off my chest. I'm like, am I the only one who like sees this pattern? Anyways, it doesn't matter. I have two more news stories for you, and then we got to get into the movie of the week. Okay. This one here, HBO Max announces new adult animated shows, which is not the interesting part, but including Velma Dinkley origin story and Clone High.
Velma Dinkley. Sorry, Velma.
Sorry, Clone High. Okay, you already know. We're very excited for Clone High.
We're very excited. I'm so excited for Clone High.
Me too. I'm very excited. Here, let's take a moment. I almost glossed it over. I'm very excited for Clone High. It's going to be great. I love that show. It was gone too soon. I hope it lives up to everyone's expectations. Amanda is dancing. Velma gets her own HBO Max show. What?
Yeah, it's
Scooby-Doo, by the way.
Mindy Kaling.
Is it?
Yeah, Mindy Kaling's going to be she's a producer and she's going to be the voice of Velma.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you always want to see a Velma origin story? I guess. Like, why Velma?
I feel like I'll say I assume of course there's going to be a story there of just like a smart, self-assured woman getting stuff done. But I think the thing is studios are like, yes, we want to tell that story. That story is so hot right now. Yeah. People love a good female lead, but they're also like, we don't want to do an original story because there's a lot of risk that comes with that. So we want to do a pre-existing property that you can use as a vehicle to tell your story. So I'll be interested. Right. Like, it kind of feels to me like it's like a chicken before the egg, where it's like, I feel like they like maybe, and who knows, she wanted to tell a story and Velma was like, the best way to get the money for it, because I personally never had a strong connection to the character, but like, I'm sure it can make for a great show. There just seems to be this like interest right now in revisiting, I guess, like what 90s properties, like these cartoons, and sort of like, I'm happy though that they're keeping it animated and not doing a live action. I'll say that,
because that'd be and then it'd just be Riverdale.
Exactly.
Because like you sparked something in me, because it's like, okay, maybe they want to have it because she's a female lead, but why isn't it Daphne instead? But I think it's because, and I just wanted to Google this to make sure I was right. It's because Velma, the creator of Velma, they said, oh, you know what? Velma is a lesbian. She is part of the LGBTQ community now. And this is like a retcon. I mean, I guess they never established it before, but now they're like, you know what? Velma's a lesbian. And I wonder if HBO's like, we got something. We got something, baby. It's going to be voiced by Mindy Kaling, and it's also a lesbian in a female-led show origin story. I don't know. It just seems like it's a hot button thing, and they're like really trying to capitalize on that,
I would say too, especially like, I don't know if you watched Harley Quinn, the DC series, but it's like an adult. No. There's an adult animation called Harley Quinn. Yep. I'm going to I'll mention this show again because it'll be the one I recommend to people. But it dealt with a relationship with Harley too. And someone else in the show that I won't quite reveal yet because I want people to enjoy. But it like seeing the Velma nuts, and I'm like, I wonder if they saw the success of this like adult animation show and were like, because even like the artist style of like the promo art they showed felt like similar in vein and stuff. I kind of I'll be curious to see if it's not just like an animated Veronica Mars,
Right. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see, I guess.
Well, I'll probably watch it. I'll absolutely check it out because I'll give it an episode.
I'll give it an episode or two.
See what they do with it. We gotta, if we like it, we like it. If we don't, well, we'll talk about it.
Then we'll talk about it. Yeah, well, Talking Tongue, the Velma episode. Okay, last thing. I mean, I have other things we can talk about, but we should get to the movie at some point. And okay, last thing is this. So you haven't seen Mandalorian, so this might not mean anything to you, but this is probably the biggest story of the week, which is Gina Carano got fired from Disney for making,
Yeah.
well, she's just, I mean, I'm gonna put it out there right now. She's kind of like the worst. Like she puts out some really, I mean, it's not because she, and this is how she frames it, is because she's Republican and everyone hates her because she's Republican. But I don't like her because the things that she puts out is like, oh, that's like, she compared being a Republican today to being a Jew in the Holocaust. Like that's like
Oh my
that
God.
is the statement that got her fired from Disney. I think rightfully so. But before that, it was
Yeah.
always like comments like these and
Hmm.
on this very popular TV show. And the
Hmm.
biggest crime is that she's a bad actress. Like it's like well, that's not the biggest crime, but like I watch her in this beloved franchise, and I watch her and I'm like, man, she looks the part, but she can't act. And it just
Yeah.
blew my mind. I mean, that's one thing to get hung up about, but like I think it's like, I mean, like you haven't watched the show, but I'm sure you heard this news by now, right?
Yes, I was. I saw the announcement, and I was like, I saw all of the reasons she was fired for the comments she was making, and I was like, yep, that's absolutely a reason to lose your job. And then I also saw something on Twitter that was funny where someone was talking about how Republicans were like, freedom of speech. Like, you can't fire someone for sharing their beliefs. And then it was like, actually, like Republicans fully support like some bill that allows employers to fire based like on reasons they deem necessary, and they don't have to provide you with a reason. They like the privatization business means they can just fire you without any like need to have a exit interview. So it's great to see her out of the show, because I heard like even like a year ago, like people were like, why is she a part of this show? For exactly that duality of like, she's a shit person and a shit actor. Like
Yeah, she's bad.
you don't get to be bad at both
Yeah,
and last
exactly.
as long as she did. Like the fact she lasted this long, I'm like, wow, they really took their time on this. But I'm glad to see her go, and I hope they find a much better replacement for her.
Well,
And
that's the other thing is that like people are like
oh yeah,
replace her with this, you know, her character is a former Rebel Alliance soldier, blah blah blah. She gets a bigger role, I guess, in season 2. But like this is maybe a spoilers, but it's the show's not about her. It's about the Mandalorian. She is
yeah,
really not in it for that long. They could absolutely do the show without her. They don't have to touch
right.
her character again. They can just say she's off doing her own thing. So when people are like, let's replace the character, I'm like, do you have to? Like, it's not that interesting.
Right.
It's,
Yeah. Maybe they just want like they just like, oh, we liked her characterization. So bring back like that like cool, strong rebel
yeah,
soldier,
yeah.
but
And like,
just in like a different iteration that's nothing like her.
yeah, well, and she looks badass. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at her, you're like, she looks the part. She looks like she could fucking mess up somebody. But as soon as she starts
Yeah.
talking, I'm like, you're an actress. I don't I look at everyone else and I get lost in this world, and then I look at her and she's like trying to read this dialogue or like say it, and I'm like, it just feels so wooden. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
how I feel about her. Yeah.
That's, you know what? I think you feel the right feelings. And I'm sure once I watch her on my television screen, I will be like, good thing she's gone.
Or then you go the other way and you're like, you know what? She needs her own film. And I'm like, no. And
Yeah.
that's when our friendship would end, I guess.
Who am I? Ben Shapiro?
Did you hear about that?
I did.
That's crazy. Well, yeah.
I
So
know.
that was trending, I guess, was it this morning or the night before? It doesn't matter. It was just
Yeah.
like, oh, wait a second. We're going to uncancel because she got a movie deal writing and producing and probably acting in the Daily Wire, which is not a movie studio.
I know.
And Ben Shapiro is going to help make her movie. And I'm like, Ben Shapiro, like that guy also famously not a writer for movies.
They really were like, let's use the term movie, and people were like, I don't think you can. And they're like, no, what's going to be what's more impressive than a TV show? A movie. And it's like, she's like, I'm going up in the world. Like, her publicist did a great job at making it seem like her life is going to turn around, when in fact it is running straight into a muddy pit of despair, and no one is ever going to want to hear from her again.
Well, those people will.
Previously tolerated her.
Yeah.
Like, no, like she's not going to have the hopefully the the reach she did before being on a part of like a platform like Disney.
Right.
You know?
I wonder if like she'll just be very popular within that group of people, right?
Yeah.
The Daily Wire fans.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
What is it that other what her and Tommy Lahren are gonna have a group chat
Oh
about
God. Ugh.
how how it feels to be a despicable human. And
Okay, with that,
yes,
let's talk about the movie. We talked a
yes,
lot about news this week, which is great. We had so much to talk
yeah.
about, but of course, we got to talk about the film of the week, which Amanda, you chose. So you want to
I did
introduce it
choose this
for us?
movie. Yes, so I chose the movie Akira.
Yeah, Tokyo is going to change soon.
What'd you do? You weird little...
Move out! Hands on your heads!
This boy's pattern is the key to solving the riddle of Akira's growth pattern process.
I don't know who that is!
If this situation gets out of hand, that needs to be terminated.
Kaneda, what the hell's going on?
The plan is in place already.
Don't do it!
We get to meet Akira again.
What? Akira?
Don't hurt anyone else!
Which is a dystopian cyberpunk anime movie from 1988, I believe.
Yep.
And was a movie I told Tongue I wanted to see because in watching a lot of like, think pieces on different animes, this title just kept coming up as kind of like a movie that spawned a lot of the modern day choices that are made in some of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to see what this is about because I feel like there's something very exciting about loving a form of entertainment and being like, oh, what inspired this? Like knowing that all art usually came from something before. Like what's the giants whose shoulders in which my shonens are standing on.
Great.
So I was very excited. I didn't realize it would be 2 hours. That's a big investment.
It was.
And it was a emotionally demanding 2 hours and intellectually
mentally
demanding.
Yeah,
like mentally, maybe that's what I mean, like emotionally in the sense that I was just like, the soundtrack filled me with such a sense of dread the whole time. But I don't know, like I'd like to just get like overall, before we get into the nitty gritty, maybe we can share overall feelings. I'm very curious to see what you got because I did watch that breakdown video.
That you did? Okay.
I needed to watch it. So
yeah. Okay. So we'll start with this. Like I also, Akira was one of those things that I also knew was very well spoken of in terms of like changing anime forever. This is the movie, some people would argue this is the movie that changed anime from time to come and what we now view as modern anime. The whole 80s era of anime really helped shape what we have today in 2021. And I was very excited to watch it. It almost didn't happen until we're like, oh, it is on Funimation. Yeah, we were like celebrating and stuff. And I had no idea what this movie was about. Truly, I had no idea. I started recognizing snippets of being like, oh, that's what this is from.
Yeah.
But like from the poster itself, you got this guy and a red bike. So immediately I was like, this movie, just putting it together from a poster, I was like, okay, this isn't like this, dystopian future, whatever. It's about cool ass bikes probably, and it's gonna be about a biker gang movie, and probably at some point this bike's gonna transform and do some cool shit, and he's gonna fight another person with a bike. Maybe he'll like wear the bike as armor and punch people. None of that happens. I was so wrong. I had no idea what this movie was about, and then after watching it, I had to I think part of it was I smoked some weed before this movie, which I usually do. And then I was I shouldn't have done that for this movie because it's so hard to follow already. And then I sent Amanda before she watched it, this YouTube explaining Akira thing. And I'm like, holy shit. I did not absorb that on my watch through. And I don't even think I would blame it entirely on weed. Even if I watched it sober, I was like, oh, there's this going on and that going on. I did not pick up on this universe creating thing, which is a huge part of the movie. Apparently, I didn't pick up on like these like, you know, allegories to the you know, Hiroshima and like the nuclear bombing that happened and stuff like that. I was just like, man, where was my mind at? But then like I watched it and I was just like, I still really enjoyed the film, especially the animation. Holy shit. Like that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's gorgeous. Hand-drawn animation. And I saw like a making of with that stuff. I'm not sure if that was the same video. I watched too. And it's just, they pack in so much emotion and in their drawings. And I saw one where it's like, sometimes there's 60 pictures per frame, which is nuts. That means someone had to draw 60 different things, which is like insane. Anyways, I'm talking too much. Amanda, what did you think of this movie?
No, I loved that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was such a good like overview of a lot of the things I felt. And it's so funny though, because in that video, like you're saying like, oh, the thing's been over my head. But literally the video was like this one sentence that was in the movie. Like, I think all of the like explanations to what the movie about is boiled down to like 5 sentences over 2 hours. So I agree that even if you were sober, you probably wouldn't have, because I did like when I was watching them, I was like, oh, I cool. That meant a lot more than I thought. Okay, cool. That's good to know. So I agree where visually it was incredible. Like I think what's so cool too is like when you're watching, it's like watching it and then like as you're watching it, your brain is kind of like thinking of imagery that you've seen before that looks like this.
Yeah.
And so like I would find I'm like there's shots of just like, oh, that looks like that, like, oh, that looks like that. Like it's not obviously just in like because it's in an anime style. It's just like the way like a character moves, like the setting in something. Like it's just everything. There was the one shot that really like I felt myself just like instantly smile because I'd seen it so many times before, and it was like seeing it in the wild for the first time, was the shot where he's like on the bike and he screeches to a stop.
Yeah.
And I'd seen that shot so many times in like so many like AMVs and like just got like, you know, breakdowns on different anime and stuff. And like seeing it in the movie was so like, whoa, that's it. Like,
it is cool really looking when you see it again. You're like, fuck yeah, Canada. His his name's Canada, and I'm like, I was like, man, this he's wearing red all the time. His bike's red. Is he from Canada? I don't know.
I don't. Wait, it's not discussed. And although it's interesting too because it was like watching it, I also felt like the I guess the sci-fi elements of like the like Esper kids and stuff. Like I was like, oh, this feels like, I mean, immediately I just thought of like Mob Psycho and being like, oh, like clearly like connections between that. But it was interesting to see the show just embrace making you feel uncomfortable the whole time. Like it didn't, like it was like a lot of the style, you know, I like animation today that has like hot people and cute people, and like, you know, there's like a look to them that's been kind of refined. And I find this one was like when they would show the kids, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like you felt immediate empathy for them. So like you're not well.
They live in a shitty place. Neo Tokyo, like, not a great place to live.
Not a great place to live. And like I was surprised at the Colonel's role. I forget. Like the fact that the Colonel made it through. Yeah, I was surprised because initially going in, I'm like, oh, he's going to be the military bad guy. And like, it was like, you know, it was kind of setting itself up to be like, clearly this is going to be the guy who kind of seemingly got everyone into this situation. Yeah. So surely he'll face consequences. But then it was like, oh, I guess he's not. He's gonna be okay with the rest of them. But something I was thinking about, and this is like for this movie, but also like others, I think there's just something that's like wild about these movies that like introduce a love interest for like one of the main characters, and it's like, you know, they make it to the end and they get to have that connection, but also knowing that your partner and you to an extent have been through a life-altering traumatic experience which will define your relationship.
Yeah. Giant baby looking thing. That like, would be a life-altering experience.
Like, you know, it's just like, I mean, great, like you survived, but also I don't think you'll ever be the same. Like I think you're gonna be dealing with this for the rest. So part of you is like, oh, they have each other, but you're like, I don't know though. I think you might
Yeah.
need like, and the dynamic between Canada and oh my god, what's the other
His best friend or
yeah, what's his best friend? What's his best friend's name?
Tetsuo?
Tetsuo is I felt like their dynamic is one I have seen
Right. Yeah.
so many times before. Like it really is such like a recognizable dynamic
It
in I
is.
feel like the world of anime specifically. This idea of like one charismatic, I'll stand up for you, best friend, and the other shy, quiet, but secretly super powerful. Like it's just
but evil as well. And like it's
yeah.
so cool. You know, I was thinking about that and it's interesting the characters in Akira because first of all, there's so many fucking characters in this movie. But also like the other thing that I notice about this movie is like you have Canada who I can't stop laughing whenever I say his name. But you have him as the main character, but he's not at the same time. It's like he's in the front of the posters. He is like, it's him and his red bike, all this other stuff. But there's actually so much more going on with everybody else. And he's just a piece of that. And I just found that fascinating where like really the main character is the bad guy, which is his best friend, Tetsuo. And it's an interesting story, I think, like, you know, how he awakens his latent psychic abilities and then that turns him to a world of evil. And then there's the whole, you know, the whole actual Akira part of it. It was like, wait, what? What happened? Some kid, Akira, helped blow up Tokyo, missing, came back. Now he's part of this pocket dimension. I'm like, what?
It got, literally the moment that Canada wasn't Akira, I was like, wait, then why is he on the poster with the name Akira across him if he's not Akira? Like, you know, just made to feel dumb for assuming that surely the character on the poster with Akira is Akira.
Yeah.
But I liked what the video talked about. It mentioned the idea of like oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget my train of thought. I had it and then I lost it. I'm sorry, keep talking.
It'll come back.
It'll keep talking.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of times we spoil what happens on Talking Tongue with the movie. And with this one, I find it's hard to, because I find it's one of those things that you have to see. I do recommend it for people who are very curious about the lineage of like maybe it's not going to be your favorite movie ever. I still really liked it, but it is heavy. It's dense. There's so much to it. And I think one of the interesting parts of that video I sent you is that Akira, the movie versus Akira, the manga, were developed basically in tandem, where like Akira was based on the manga, but it wasn't finished yet. So like, it's kind of like the movie, like he made the manga, he's making the movie, manga's not done yet. And then when he finished the movie, he had ideas on how to finish the manga. And I'm like, whoa, that's such a weird way to do it. And then I've heard, maybe it was from that video or the other video, but like, it makes much more sense to read the manga as a whole rather than the movie. Because a movie is like a snippet. It's like, apparently the way the guy described it was like the beginning and the end of the movie are very present in Akira, or the whole story. And then everything that happens in the middle is kind of like a mishmash of everything that doesn't completely fit together. But if you read the manga all the way through, characters in the movie that maybe had one line of dialogue are significant characters in the manga. And I'm like, maybe I should go read that and maybe I'll understand this more.
I remembered, it was something that was also discussed in the video, but that idea of like adults being like not being able to handle psychic powers because they're too selfish in nature, and like the whole thing of like him becoming like an egomaniac, like Tetsuo becoming this egomaniac who's like, I am all powerful. I am the most powerful being in the world. Everyone should fear me. And I feel like that God complex is so prevalent in so many like protagonists in modern anime. But it's interesting seeing it have consequences, because so often that egocentric God complex gets their goals accomplished, and they end up like getting everything they wanted, and like sometimes, you know, it ends with their death, sometimes it ends like, but they often, like, you see sort of like the full story finishes and then ends with their kind of like comeuppance or with their like victory. But this, it felt like, oh, this person is like getting punished like again and again. And like when you're near the scene with the end, when like his arm is transforming and
so
he
cool.
like,
That's such a cool visual.
Oh, it's such a disgustingly brilliant, like,
it's
you
gross,
feel it, like,
but it's
and,
like,
just
whoa.
the hands like gripping and you're like, oh, that is like, it's like, it felt like it was like the personification or the visualization of like human greed and like someone who's like selfish and only putting their needs first, and that they become this like amorphous blob that's just like sucking in everything in its path and stuff. Like that was such a, I thought that knowing what his characterization was representing, that was just such a key visual to be like, that is absolutely the best way to show that.
Yeah, and then it's like when that happens, he's scared because he can no longer suppress it, and it's one of those like things where he ends up like crushing the one person he likes by accident, and then calling out for the person that's always come to save him, and then he pushed away, and now he's like, save me again, like, fuck, I'm sorry. And it's a whole thing. And then, you're right. His character arc is so interesting because like at the end of the movie, very confusing. And I had to look up what it meant, and I don't fully understand it. But Akira, this fucking, I don't even know, like really powerful datey kid who just comes up and whatever, he shows that like, it looks like he gets Tetsuo to come in this pocket dimension where he gets to accept who he is, and Tetsuo accepts his godness, and then at the end he says, I am Tetsuo, like I am the universe, I am God, and that's it, that's the movie. And you're like, wait, what?
I feel like too, it's like in here you like talk, like knowing that there's other characters and stuff too, I feel like something the movie does is you're never really like, I don't know that there's like a consistent villain throughout it, or consistent, like, you know, like I guess like Tetsuo becomes it, but even then you're just like, yes, but he's a victim also in some ways, because it's like he was taken to this lab and they started testing on him, and like they provoked his latent psychic abilities in like an older adult, which they probably knew they shouldn't be doing, but like it's kind of like, well, if you push someone to the brink and then they like go wild and destroy everyone and everything, is it like, well, they crossed the line after you pushed them over it? So it just, I feel like it really made me like hate Tetsuo at times, but then also be like, he's just a victim of his circumstances.
And he's
like,
just a boy. He's just a kid. He's just
a
kid who got bullied a lot, and he could never stand up for himself. And now he has the power to do it. That's the thing, is Akira, like I can see why it's such a well regarded like art, like piece of like movie. And it's because it has so many freaking layers to it. And it's one of those things that, you know, if you, upon many rewatches, I'm sure I'd be picking up more and more. And it's really interesting because like, not only has it changed anime, it's changed a lot of how Western culture views stuff. Like I know a lot of Hollywood big execs and stuff like that. They look at Akira and be like, yeah, Akira, that is the thing. Like, you know, Taika Waititi was supposed to be helming the new Akira as well. I think Guillermo del Toro was at one point like supposed to be part of that. Like it's, the themes and the characters and what happens in Akira has kind of bled everywhere, which is what made it such a popular anime. And it's an interesting thing where I feel like it's now starting to kind of dissipate away from the pop culture mainstream. Like people are starting to, if I bring up Akira to somebody these days, they'll be like, what? They'll be like, excuse me, I don't know. Like they think I sneezed or something like that. I don't know. I just find it, I don't have a point with this. I just think this movie as a whole is very fascinating to look at on a artistic level. Did I enjoy it? Yes, but I'm so confused by it. That's kind of where I'm at.
It was one of those, like, I will say too, just, and Tang and I have talked about like the sub versus dub. I will say I would encourage you to watch this movie subbed.
Yeah.
I checked out the dub just to see what it was like. Shout out our boy Johnny Young Bosch, who did Ichigo, Kurosaki, as well as Lelouch V. Britannia is Kadada. So he's like the main, and it's so I immediately heard his voice. I'm like, yeah, you would be the guy to dub this movie. Just giving like the timeline. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But I like, it was at a time where just the lips, like it just looks so bad. Like bad. It looks bad. It sounds bad. I found like it took me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of creates this sense of like, you're more aware you're watching a movie, where I feel like when it's like in Japanese, it's like an experience. Like you just get the emotions more from the actors. Like it just feels a lot more authentic for obvious reasons. But I would encourage people listening to watch it in sub.
I mean, I only watch anime in a sub version, so no, I'm just snob like that. No. I don't judge anyone who watches the English version. But yeah, I would say with this movie for sure, you'd want to watch it in Japanese. I think just the drama of it just comes out better in the natural language. I think overall, it's a really interesting movie with interesting characters, because like everybody's kind of shitty. Even Canada, like he's like pretty not great at a lot of stuff. Like he kind of like forces himself onto the female lead. And he's just like, you're my girlfriend now. And she's like, no. And he keeps doing that until she's like, fine, I guess. Like but there's nobody who's good, which is kind of like what this movie is. Like it's that's why it's interesting. He's not like a typical shonen character like that, which is kind of why maybe it throws me off a little bit, because I watch a lot of shonen stuff. So when I watch anime that's like, we were talking about this at the very beginning of the show, maybe it's full circle. Like there's so many different types of anime out there. And this is one of them, like, you know, that would inspire shonen and all those other types of media going forward. But this world is very bleak, and they're not afraid to show it. And they'll show the violence. They'll show like how shitty the government is and how the school is and how like nobody cares about like this woman about to be raped. Like it's like a bleak ass world, and it ends on a philosophical note. Yeah.
It's one of those, it's funny though, because I also was confused throughout it, but it was like, it almost makes you feel like a movie like that. And I mean this as a compliment, and I promise you should still watch it, but it makes you feel insignificant. Like, I don't know, when I'm watching a movie like that, I'm just like, oh man, everything's so like, it just makes everything in my life feel so small, because this is making me tap into like questions I'm not asking myself on a daily basis, you know? Like, and I think philosophical questions like that it asks you, and like the things you're watching about like morality and like power struggle and how people make decisions based off of like self-preservation and what they believe will get them to the top of whatever pyramid they're after faster is the decision they're going to make. So I think it when you're not looking internally at all of these, like, oh, that's a big question, like to ask and stuff, you're seeing people's faces get shot off. Because so you really never really have like a break. Like you're either being faced with like abhorrent gore and like, you know, like police chases and or you're being faced with like moral guilt and like these like terrible people. So there's not a break at any point. Like there's not really a lot of laughs, I'll say.
Oh no, it's not very much a comedy film whatsoever. Yeah,
like not even like a moment of reprieve. I think there's not a sense of like, oh, I get to smile now. It's like, oh no, I've just been frowning for 2 hours.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the frowning. It made me think, and then sometimes it made me think too much. And then luckily I watched a video being like, no, this line doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Like the way it's presented, the amoeba line, that's what it is. It's like
Yeah.
if you're an
Oh my
amoeba
God.
and you get this power, and I'm just like, well, whatever, people should watch this movie and then
Yeah.
get to this amoeba line and you're like, I
Yeah.
don't I think I know what you're trying to say, but it's not coming out well and it's breaking my brain the way it's delivered.
Yeah. Then it's hard too because it's like I would actually encourage people to. What I guess is fun too is you in watching this movie, you'll have then access to all of these like breakdowns of it and like all of these like this is just one conversation of thousands online
Yeah.
about this movie and the impact it's had on anime and like what it signifies and how it was made and
Yeah.
what's so impressive about its production quality. So it's a really nice rabbit hole to go down. And like the film itself is like, woo, that's heavy. But I feel like I for one, I love after like a heavy piece of art, I love getting into the like
Me too.
analysis of it
Yeah.
because then I don't feel like lonely because I think this movie can make you feel lonely. It can make you feel like, wait, what did I just watch? What I just watched surely is not understood by anyone. And like that's
Yeah.
why I was so excited to talk to you about it, is because just having like a person to talk about it and then a YouTuber to listen talk about it, like
Yeah.
you really start to feel connected again. And I
Yes.
think that connection is something we're all looking for right now. So
Yeah, because I remember like being like, I feel so almost stupid not knowing what this film's about. And then I go online and their comments are like, hey, I've watched this movie like a million times. And even watching this video, I'm still confused. And it's like, like I had like a nice breath of fresh air being like, okay, it's not
Yeah.
me. It's not necessarily the movie. It's just that it's so dense, but it is exciting to I'm so happy that I watched this film because now I can say I've watched this film and I can be part of this discussion with people about a movie that's so impactful to anime and everything. Like we talked about a million times today. It is so cool that we got to watch this film, and it is hard to watch, but I like sometimes, but it's worth it. I think like it just, even animation alone, if you just strip it all apart, it's just like, it's so gorgeous looking. I love it.
Yeah. If you literally turned off the subtitles, put it on mute and just had it like, and just watched it as like a like picture frame, it'd be like perfect. Like it's so ingenious.
Yeah.
Very happy we did this.
Me too. Amanda, how would you rate Akira?
I would give Akira, I would give it the singularity. I would give it the singularity that only it could acquire.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. So you are giving it the singularity. In essence, you are ranking it Tetsuo, as far as I know.
I'm ranking it one Tetsuo because as much as this film has inspired, I cannot think of a film like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
yeah,
you really
either.
can't. Like there's so many elements to it. We're like, oh, surely, like, there's some Mad Max vibes, there's some Matrix vibes, but from top to bottom, it's one of the most unique things I've ever seen. And I'm like, because like you're saying, it's so dense. All you could do would be pull pieces from this thing.
Yeah.
Like to recreate. I understand why they're so caught up in freaking live action production of this thing, because it is such a massive undertaking that the fact that it got made once is a miracle.
I can't even imagine it being made again, especially a Western version of it. I'll be like, I mean, maybe we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but I'll say one thing quick is that with this huge seminal piece of work, Western society was like, okay, what if, this was years ago, they're like, what if we made Akira, but Canada is played by Leonardo DiCaprio and it's not in Tokyo, it's in like New York. And I'm like, no. Like that doesn't make any sense. Don't do it. It has to take place in Tokyo. It has to be Japanese inspired. That's what this movie is. Like it can't be. I would hate to see it. Like, I mean, like there's the Monster Hunter movie that came out not too long ago, which I won't get too deep into, but it's a very popular Japanese video game that they totally threw into like, but what if it was like the American military was involved? And it's like, stop it. Like, I hate that.
Yeah, I equally on that hate train. I just don't think I think it's like if you want to tell a story like Akira, tell your own story. You like there's plenty of American history you can pull from to talk about these types of issues and answer these types of questions. But I don't think recreating someone else's story is the best way to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, like Kira is not a very like a North American word, you know?
No,
it's very in
not.
Japanese. It's just like me.
Yeah, you're gonna hear Akira and you'll be like, oh yeah, the Japanese film. Like it's just
yeah. A Karen. That's what.
A
And maybe it doesn't invoke the same mystery, but yeah. Wow, Amanda, what a discussion today. I love talking to you. I mean, we went longer than regular Talking Tongue episodes, but you know what? We needed this. I needed this outlet to talk about Akira. It's so, and all these news stories for this week. So, Amanda, before we let you go into the wilderness, can you give the people some plugs?
Yes. Okay. So I will say that the show I mentioned earlier, Harley Quinn, it's by DC Comics, and I really recommend people watching that one. There's 2 seasons out right now. So have a great time with that one. I also am going to promote Esther Perel has an episode with Dax Shepard. If you know his podcast, I'm promoting another podcast on your podcast. Is that okay?
I'm turning this off.
Is that cool?
No.
Is that cool?
Okay,
is that
fine.
cool?
I guess so.
Armchair Expert episode with Dax Shepard and Esther Perel. It'll blow your mind, folks. They do to relationship psychology what Tung and I have done in terms of an analysis for Akira. In terms of it just changing minds and changing lives. And I would also have you listen to the new episode of Top 5 that's going to be coming out soon.
Be coming up soon. Watch out. Amanda makes her way back in the pod cavern again. That's great. I
didn't want to leave the first time.
But we had to kick you out because you would not leave.
They have a squatter policy.
And check out Miss Persona, of course.
Yes, and of course check out Miss Persona. Like, do people have kids that listen to the show? Do we think?
You know what? If you have kids out there, listen to Miss Persona.
Listen to Miss Persona.
Or watch it. Sorry, it's a show.
There's songs and then there's a show element and a craft element. It really has everything you could ever need.
Every audience of ours has a kid or is a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe we're getting back into the philosophical aspects of Talking Tongue, singularity.
What is a child? That's the question I'll leave the audience with.
What is Tetsuo? I don't know. All right. Well, for me, you can find the rest of the shows in the Pod Cavern at www.podcavern.com. This has been Talking Tongue. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode. Hopefully not as confusing. Although, you know what? I fucking loved Akira. I'd watch that again.
Yeah.
Amanda, before we go, can you give the people your world famous catchphrase?
Of course I can. Howdy do, and to you.
Bye, everyone.